Good afternoon and welcome to the Community Arts Center of Cambria County. I'm Rebecca Pender and my exhibit is hanging from now until the 1st of July. It's titled God's Glory, God Inspired, and I truly mean that. Without him, the canvases in this room would be blank. There would be nothing on them. So if you have any questions, please submit them.
All right, so first we're going to start off with questions that were left in the comments this week. So Stephanie Marie asks, have you always grown up around art, and have you always been inspired by it?
In a manner of speaking, I've grown up around art. My father was a baker, and he did amazing things with decorating cake. He was my think-out-of-the-box person growing up. He would take literally nothing and make it into something. So I guess from my father's side, I get looking at things from many different angles. My mother was a needle person, and she knitted, crocheted, did huck weaving, all kinds, anything you could do with a needle. But she was by the book person. So from her side, I got to learn techniques and to follow instructions.
All right, and also from Stephanie Marie, do you have any plans on experimenting with new mediums?
I'm always experimenting. And I like acrylics more so than oil because of all the compounds that are available. Tar, gel, glass beads, crackle paste, the liquid acrylics, the heavy-bodied acrylics. There's so much leeway in working with acrylics, introducing paper, introducing gauze. I guess I'm always experimenting.
All right, and another question from the comments. It's from Donnie Davis. How does Rebecca come up with ideas for her paintings?
I don't. Simple as that. I go to a canvas and it's white and it's blank. I may start with crackle paste, maybe glass beading, maybe soft molding paste, all of it. And as my business card says, God paints the picture, I hold the brush. And I literally do not have a preconceived idea. I just start, I play, and I go from there.
All right, so those are all the questions that we got from the comments. And while we wait for more comments to come through, I'm going to ask you a few. So you grew up in Somerset. So how has growing up in that area influenced your art, and has it influenced your art at all?
As for the actual geographic, demographic area, not really. It's the people that were in my life during high school, some of my art teachers, especially Paul Beal. And when I was a senior in high school, it seemed like all of a sudden I was in charge of pep signs for the school. I did a lot of drawings, caricatures, and everyone started pushing me towards pursuing art. At that point in my life, I really couldn't see why they were saying that, but it was the people that I came in contact, not so much the area.
So when exactly did you kind of come around and figure out, hey, these people are, telling the truth, I can paint and I have a talent for art?
About 5 years ago. I was in art education. I always seemed to have the ability to compose things, but for the years I was at Indiana University at PA in the art ed department, I really couldn't find a reason I was there. we tend to compare ourselves to people that are doing what we wish we could do and can't. So it was a very trying time in my life, and I started with photography, and you'll notice within the show, I don't sign my work, it's signed on the back. But on the photography, it says Sadie Beck. And my mother was Sarah Rebecca. I lost her, I think it was my junior year. And my father's nickname for her was Sadie Beck, and she hated it. But I always liked it. So when I started doing photography, I signed my work as Sadie Beck in honor of my mother. But it wasn't until 5 years ago that I picked up a brush.
All right, and so we actually have a comment from the live comments from Anke Turco. Your use of color is amazing. Do the colors express your feelings while creating?
That's a good question. I never really thought about it. I love color, and I very seldom do a muted piece. I think there are only 2 in the whole show that are subdued, and one is the seashore and the other was COVID. The picture that's titled COVID, yeah, it might very well reflect how I felt at the time I was doing it. Mostly, I think it shows, my pieces show the happiness that I glean from painting and from using color.
All right, so just another question on our end. Has anyone else in your family pursued art?
Not really. The closest to someone that used art in their life would have been my dad, because he was a cake decorator. And it was back during the time that it was all the old-fashioned hard icing with the beautiful flowers. So whenever there was a family birthday or an event, he'd bake a cake and decorate it, and you never knew what it was going to look like. So that's the closest anyone in our family came to creative art. My mother did beautiful needlework, but it was by the book.
All right, and so could you tell us a little bit more about your artistic process?
Well, I go to the canvas and I pull out paint, colors that I think I like, and I just start. I mean, I use all kinds of palette knives. I don't use brushes too much. I use credit cards, or I may start and build up texture on the canvas, let it dry, and then start working the color into it. Process is a hard word to deal with, because that process may start with paper glued to the canvas with mediums. It may start with a palette knife and white mediums, making a design or dividing space, and then adding color. So process, it's kind of whatever I feel like doing that day.
All right, and your business card says, God paints the pictures, I just hold the brush. How do you know when God is speaking to you? Do you hear it directly? Do you see signs in places, people, or things around you?
Wow, what a question. Okay. Yes, God truly does move me. Do I hear a voice from heaven? No. It's more like I start applying paint or mediums, and all of a sudden something evolves, and I run with it. So I don't see signs. Boy, that's a tough question. Things inspire me, but Does God speak to me directly? No, he moves me. He moves my hand. Do people inspire me? Well, sure. I look at a lot of other artists' work and go, oh, wow, I really like that. Well, in my experience, if I'm putting that information into my head, at some point, it's going to come back out. So I like looking at other people's work. I like watching videos of abstract artists, videos on usually different mediums, and it'll pop out at the right time. When I need it and when it's going to work, it'll just ooze out of me somehow.
All right. And have you tried painting a piece without the direction from God, without the inspiration?
Oh yeah, I've tried that, and those pieces are the ones I've painted over and started again. Without him, I might as well just sell my acrylics, my mediums, my brushes, etc., and find something else to do.
And so just to get this clear, what I'm getting from the inspiration from God, a lot of things, you look at them as creations from God, and that's kind of how you see these signs and things in order to create your art. Like he created, everything around you, and you look at that and take from that, and that's God's inspiration. All right. So my next question is, really, there's no doubt that you're very, very talented. Have you ever given thought to the idea that the credit from your hard work and dedication goes to someone else, who in this case would be God?
Oh, most definitely. It's to his credit, not mine. In fact, I think when I was doing the artist reception, I said, hey, this isn't mine, it's his gig. And to tell you the truth, right now, it would be wonderful if people bought, but more importantly to me is to know that there's a God in heaven that's good, that he still blesses people, and hopefully, maybe through looking at my paintings, they'll find a world of color and beauty that he's put all around us that with our busy lives we miss. I actually am in the flooring business. I do design work. And what upsets me is we're being dumbed down to neutrals. I have not seen much color in carpet for probably 10 or 12 years now. And I think that's sad because there is so much beauty out there and so many gorgeous colors. So I'm hoping anyone that looks at my show, they come away and seek the beauty that's all around them and start to learn to see what they're looking at, not just looking at. There's beauty in pebbles, there's shadows, all kinds of things that we just kind of whiz by.
Mm-hmm. And too, you mentioned working with design in carpeting. Mm-hmm. Do you think that design aspect of it has contributed to your talent and, putting all these designs into your artwork?
Actually, I think they work together. One feeds the other. With the design work that I've done over my career, the knowledge of space, breaking up space, arrangement, pulling patterns together in fabrics in rooms, they play to each other, not just one way or the other way. But I'm sure that with the interior design and, back 40 years ago, you used a lot of color, you used a lot of pattern, even through the late 70s. And I think subconsciously it kept me in tune with what was to come.
And do you think there's any specific incident or reasoning that kind of turned the world to this neutral color palette that you kind of see it through? or have previously?
I think the way, and I hope I'm not insulting anyone, and I'm going to make a very short statement. I think it's the way of the world to dumb us down and make us take our personalities away, and that's all I'm saying.
All right. So just kind of back to your artwork and these pieces in the exhibit. What was the most challenging piece to create?
The rented veil. That one, it has wrapping paper, it has tissue, it has gauze, it has metallic paint, it has micaceous iron oxide. But as I was doing that piece, I wanted to introduce a little bit of red oxide, transparent red oxide. And instead of a drop, it squirted. And my husband could hear me yelling in the parking lot, "What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?" And I immediately picked up my squirt bottle of water and I started washing it. And actually, that has gone on to win several awards. But that was definitely one of my most challenging.
All right, and so to kind of go along with that, which piece took the longest to create?
Oh, Lord, that is a question it's almost impossible for me to answer, because some pieces have started out and I didn't like them. I scraped them, painted over them. Some of those, but I don't remember which ones they are. And there have been a lot of them. Some are 5-minute wonders. I had one little piece, it was only about 8 inches, that I was waiting for my husband to get ready to leave for church, and I picked up my brush and some paint and just scribbled, and it sold a long time ago. So, I mean, with paintings, they can come together in a few minutes, and some of them, it may take days, weeks, where you work on it, put it away, work on it, put it away. So, I don't know how to truly answer that one.
All right, and too, you mentioned earlier about rented veil, that you use different pieces to create that, and a lot of other ones you've used, like the medical gauze. Are these things that you go out and, collect just because you know that you're going to be possibly using them, or do you just pick something out of your house? If you see it, do you just grab it like, this will work?
And or both.
Or both.
Actually, my daughter lived in Raleigh for 15 years. And when I would go down to visit her, we would go down to the scrap exchange. And the scrap exchange is huge. And you can find everything from seashells to acrylic paints that people have discarded. And I used to go through there regularly for found objects, for paper, for old music, old books, anything I could tear apart and use.
All right. And so getting back to the work from this exhibit, is there a piece you worked on that didn't make it into the show that you would like to tell us about?
Well, gee, funny thing. This was one I did a while ago, and unfortunately, a friend of mine, Judy Crookston, this was in an exhibit, and I was unable to pick it up, and she kind of sheltered it at her home for probably 2 or 3 years. And last night, I met she and her husband at Ruby Tuesdays in Somerset. But this is one I've always liked. I love the colors. And it can be what you want it to be. It can go anywhere from fire to flowers to whatever. But I love the brilliance of the colors. There's a lot of texture to it. Here again, which you can't really see on video.
And that one is called Wildfire Sunset, correct? All right. And so, I remember you saying that when you were in college around like IUP days, that things got a little bit tough, a little challenging. Was there ever a time where you felt like giving up on art?
Yeah, IUP.
Yeah, that was the time.
Yeah, I was an art education major, and I don't know if I said before, I hope I'm not being redundant, but I had lost my mother right before I entered summer sessions at IUP. And my father was not dealing with my mother's death very well. I was over in almost 2 hours away. And the other thing I think we all do, especially when we're younger, I said earlier that sometimes we compare ourselves to people that are doing what you think you want to do, but you can't do. I've always said, for realism, there's a glitch between my mind and my hand. It just doesn't work. Realism is very difficult for me, and I think the reason I turned to abstract was the freedom and the ability to manipulate it more so than a landscape, a floral arrangement, etc., etc. It's too structured for me.
And do you think that kind of hard time into around the time that your mother passed and your father was dealing with that, do you think that was happening at the right time? Do you think that happened for a reason? Do you think it even, hindered?
Second floor kids room, what's going on upstairs?
All right. So, do you think that hindered any kind of artistic experience that you would have had at that time?
No, I think God has a plan for everyone's life. And everything is in God's time. And I think God knew I wasn't ready to create. But what did happen at that time, when I left IUP and came home and started my adult life, my neighbors that I grew up with, their kids, it was called Somerset Paint and Supply. But within that, they did design work. I mean, wallpapers, furniture, some flooring, etc. And both Bill and BJ were created, Bill probably more so than BJ. And I started working for them, and it kept me in tune with principles of art. And I think I had to go through everything I had to go through. And then when I met my husband, our first big date was China, to visit his daughter who was teaching in China. And I took disposable cameras, and he has an eye for composition, and he has some artistic abilities. And when we got back, that was when he said, you need to do photography. And that was where I stuck my foot in the water testing, and eventually the photography evolved into the paintings.
And that photography, that grew from the China experience that you went through.
Yes.
Do you remember the first photograph that kind of started it, what it was called or anything like that?
No, I mean, whenever we traveled before 9/11, but there was still high security, especially like going through Japan, and it seemed like every time we went through security, they would take all my cameras and fire at the floor. I have more pictures of the floor than you could shake a stick at. But during that time and the quality of those cameras, no, it wasn't one specific picture that was taken. It was what he saw in all of them.
All right, and is there anything else you would like to say about your photography? I know we focused a lot on the paintings, the abstract. Is there a specific photograph that just speaks to you completely, completely takes over you when you look at it?
Yeah, it's called The Window of Hope. And that was taken in front of a warming hut on the cross-country ski trails up across from Hidden Valley. And I love reflections. A lot of my work shows reflections. And I was taking a picture, it was in the fall, it was a bright day, and I was taking pictures of this reflection in a 12-pane window, an old, very old 12-pane window. And whenever I got home that evening and we were looking at my pictures, Steve went, "Oh my God, look." And it was a picture I was almost ready to delete. And here, my camera had metered through the entire building and shot the back window of the warming hut. And it was illuminated, green grass. It was a bright spot in this dark painting. So consequently, it was called The Window of Hope because it was surrounded by darkness, but there was one bright spot to focus on. And now that I look back, I may have held the camera, but I sure as heck didn't take the picture. Here it was, God again.
All right, and kind of one of my last questions here, what would you say to aspiring artists?
I think the main thing, looking back on my time at Indiana and now how I perceive painting, is number one, never compare yourself to another artist. That's the most important thing. And always remember, you can make mistakes and mistakes can turn into beauty. So if you're doing something and you don't like it, don't let it stop you. Keep working, cover it over, start again, but never, never stop. If you're passionate about painting, about watercolors, oils, just keep plugging away.
All right, and is there anything else you wanted to add about the exhibit? I know you have a workshop coming up this weekend and the following weekend. So that will be Rebecca Pender's mixed media workshop. We will have more information about that on our website and on our social media pages. And two, if you had anything you wanted to add about the exhibit, about any more of the pictures, that's up to you.
No, I think I've pretty much covered all the things that I've been thinking about. The reason the exhibit's here, the reason I do art, I think it's been pretty well covered.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us, and this is a beautiful exhibit, and we thank you so much for allowing us to show your art here.
I'm just happy to be here.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.